Years ago, I was told if you speak about things you're not good at, Matt, you will never run out of material. And in case you're wondering, I have never run out of material. And what we're going to talk about for the next few episodes falls right into that category. Thanks for joining us for Journey at Home, where we create content to make it simple for you to follow Jesus. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of this series, because we are beginning a brand new series called Revolutionary, the Empowering Invitation of the Cross. And we're going to focus on a temptation that only applies to those of us who are Jesus followers. So, for those of you who aren't, you may be really happy you're not by the time we're done with this, because what we're going to talk about really is a challenging way to live life. Now, I believe it's a better way to live life, which is why I hope you choose to follow Jesus anyway. But it's only fair that as you decide whether or not you want to follow Jesus, you just come in with eyes wide open, okay? And I think understanding this temptation just might help all of us make sense of what's happened to us in life, and maybe more specifically, what we experience inside of us. It may make sense of the disappointment that we feel in life. Disappointment with not being where we hope to one day be in life. Disappointment with how things have turned out in our life. All those times when, you thought, if only I'd made a different decision here, if only I'd not married them, or if only I'd not gotten divorced, if only I'd done more with my life, if only I'd managed my money differently, or had my kids in church more. This may help you make sense of why you carry that kind of disappointment with you and what to do with it so you don't have to keep carrying it. It may also help us make sense of the discontentment we carry in life. You know, that discontentment with our lives because we're not yet to where we want to be, or maybe the discontentment with our lives because we've arrived at where we want to be. It's just not what we thought it would be. The not enough thoughts that nag at us. You have everything you once dreamt of having, but it hasn't made you happy. You're where you always wished you'd be, but you're still lonely. We're going to talk more about these emotions in the next episode, but this temptation just might provide the explanation for why they are so common to so many of us. This is the temptation that Jesus faced early in his public ministry. In Matthew, he tells us about it. Now, Matthew was a friend and a disciple of Jesus who was there with him for about 3 years, and here's the setting for what Matthew tells us happened. Jesus was alone. He was physically exhausted and mentally drained when the devil himself came to personally tempt Jesus with 3 temptations. Now, let me just say something here to both Christians and non-Christians. If you're a Christian, you may assume the devil can be all places at all times just like God. Let me help you out. That is not true. So when you hear a Christian saying the devil's messing with them or the devil's out to get them, you're probably being safe and correct to tell them they're not that important. I'm not saying that spiritual opposition isn't real. It definitely is. But it is probably not the devil himself messing with you. Or maybe you are that big of a deal. I don't know. Anyway, that leads me to you non-Christians, because all this talk about the devil may have you going, all right, Matt, you've lost me right here. I'm out already. Who's dumb enough to believe in a devil? Okay, I hear you. But I'll give you one question you can consider and think about later. How do you explain unspeakable and unexplainable evil in this world? There's got to be a good cause. You need a good answer for that. And if Satan is not behind it, then who is? So anyway, here's the 3rd temptation the devil offered to Jesus. You find this in Matthew chapter 4. He says, again, the devil took Jesus to a very high mountain. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. Now, I cannot explain exactly how this happened, but there stands Jesus with all the kingdoms of the world, all their glory, their splendor, their authority. It's all right in front of Jesus. I don't know if we can fully comprehend how that must have felt, but the best example I can come up with is this. If you are a car person, you know that feeling you get when you walk into the showroom and all the cars are clean and perfectly lit? Or if you're a boat person, the feeling you get when you walk around the boat show and all these shiny boats are calling your name and you're like, I got to get out of here or I'm going to mortgage my future away. Or for those of you who are into homes, have you ever gone on one of those home tours and you walk into this amazing kitchen with the fridge that actually talks to you and the washer and dryer you can control all the way from Australia on your app? And the house has those really tall ceilings and the shades at work with the touch of a button and the windows, all along the back of the house with the beautiful view. And then you get done and you go back to your place and apparently somebody snuck in and lowered your ceilings while you were gone because you're starting to feel claustrophobic in your tiny home. Well, that sense of wow and awe that you feel in those moments, that's probably just a tiny glimpse of what it must have been like for Jesus to see all the kingdoms of the world, all their splendor, and then Satan sets the bait. He looks at Jesus and says, all this I will give you. Now, If this is all we know about the story, what an opportunity, huh? Feels like the opportunity of a lifetime. Who wouldn't want all the kingdoms of the world? Imagine the good that you could do with that kind of power and those kinds of resources. And don't you act all humble on me right now going, oh, I'm content with what I have. Have you ever turned down a promotion in your life? You ever refused a pay raise? Probably not. And that is not a criticism. We are wired for progress and growth, so there's nothing wrong with that. But why do you think you would refuse this kind of raise if given the opportunity? If you had all the kingdoms of the world at your fingertips, feels like the opportunity of a lifetime. But every opportunity comes with a trade-off. And sometimes those trade-offs aren't in your long-term best interest. Sometimes temptations come disguised as opportunities. So the trade-off for Jesus, Satan said, all this I will give you if you'll bow down and worship me. Satan goes, Jesus, I know you're here for these people. I know you came for all these kingdoms. I can make it easy for you. I can give it all to you right now. All you have to do is once, just a short moment, just a short season, just once acknowledge and submit to me as your king. And you may know what happens next. Jesus responds by saying, away from me, Satan. In other words, I'm not going to let this temptation disguised as an opportunity trap me. You're not actually offering me something better. You're offering me more of the same. You're offering me a way to rule like every other king and every other kingdom. But Jesus would say, that's not what I came for. That's not why I'm here. That's not my kind of kingdom. I'm not after the kind of kingdom where might makes right and power always prevails. I'm not after the kind of kingdom where whoever has the most money gets to make all the rules. I'm not after the kind of kingdom that's about image management, top down, win-lose living. That is not my kind of kingdom, and I'm not that kind of king. I'm the king who came to reverse the order of everything. I'm here to introduce a brand new kind of kingdom that this world has never seen. So Satan, you can't give me what I want because you don't have what I want. This isn't actually an opportunity. It's a temptation to take a shortcut and lose the opportunity to bring something better into the world. And then Jesus quotes from Jewish scriptures, and he says, Satan, let me remind you, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Now, do not miss the tension this creates, because this can get very confusing. If this world is all there is, then everything about this world is win-lose, and you had better look out for yourself first. Because even though you might not want to admit it out loud, it is survival of the fittest if this world is all there is. And it is might makes right, and it is whoever has the money rules. So if this world is all there is, you better get all you can and beat everybody else and work your way to the top, because every time someone else wins, you lose. But Jesus showed up to reverse the order of all those things. Jesus introduced what his earliest followers came to call the way of the cross. And just to be clear, the cross didn't represent a salvation decision to them in the first century. This wasn't about believing something. The way of the cross was a revolutionary way of life for them. A way of life where worshiping God, giving highest value to him in your life, serving him only as your highest priority, leads you to a lose-win life, not a win-lose life. The cross in the first century represented loss and powerlessness and suffering. So why would Jesus come to introduce that into the world? Let's be honest. We all want to be winners, don't we? We all want to achieve. Only losers want to lose. This is so countercultural to us. It was so countercultural to them. So here's my question. How? How did the way of the cross gain any traction? Why would anybody adopt and follow it? How in the world could it change the world? Well, it's because even though it's a much harder way of life to adopt, Jesus actually proved to us it is a better way of life to live. It's a way of life that makes you better at being productive. It makes you appropriately ambitious. It heals the disappointment, the discontentment that nags so many of us. So in the next few episodes, we're going to unpack what the way of the cross means. And I'll just warn you, you're going to have a decision to make. Will you keep chasing the kingdoms of this world, the kingdoms of your world? Will you keep falling for temptations that look like opportunities? Or will you embrace the way of the cross, the lose-win way to live life that requires you to value, worship, and serve God alone? But it's a way that delivers the kind of life you've always wanted. This week, all I hope you'll do is reflect on that. I know you're not even sure probably what it all means. That's okay. But are you content to keep chasing kingdoms of this world in the way everybody chases them? Are you open to a better kingdom, and a better way to live. And before you dismiss it as something that's just not worth it, let me remind you, Jesus launched this revolutionary way of life by choosing to lose for you. He believed you were so valuable, and this way of life was so much better for you that he gave his life on a cross for your sins so you could be rescued from these worldly kingdoms and invited into a better one that he came to bring. So don't be fooled by temptations disguised as opportunities that leave you disappointed and discontent. Your king came with a new kingdom and a better way. Maybe he was onto something, and maybe if you'll surrender to it, you'll find that losing leads to winning more than you ever imagined.